Welcome everyone to the remote commission meeting of October 11th here at the Port of Olympia. The Port of Olympia is working diligently to address the threat posed by COVID-19 to Thurston County, the state of Washington, and the United States. On March 16, 2020, the commission adopted resolution 2020-03 authorizing certain emergency powers in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, including invoking applicable emergency exemptions to meeting notice requirements and location restrictions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to that resolution, the Port of Olympia Commission is conducting tonight's meeting remotely. The Port is following the guidance from Thurston County Health Department to take all efforts to prevent the spread of this virus and is acting in the interest of the safety and welfare of the public, the community, and our employees to limit its spread. Let's see. Commissioner McGregor, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
I would, thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. We also
on this
would like
Indigenous Peoples Day, it is important that
excuse
we
me.
recognize that having only one day to honor the Indigenous communities who've lived on this land since time immemorial is not enough. I invite everyone to join in gratitude, humility, and solidarity in standing with Indigenous peoples throughout our region all year and through our lives. Those of us from non-Indigenous backgrounds have a lot to learn from those who have the deep-lived wisdom and knowledge of the land and ecosystems relationships that we are all part of. It's our responsibility to listen and learn and follow the leadership of Native nations, tribal elders, and young leaders. Let's remember that on this Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah, we want to recognize today as Indigenous Peoples Day. We further recognize the Squaxin and Nisqually tribe and are honored to share these local land and waters with them. So, moving on to approval of the agenda. I'd like to offer an amendment to the agenda as follows. I move that we remove advisory item number 2, commission pay schedule, from tonight's agenda. It has been brought to my attention by staff that the port actually has a resolution that fulfills the intent and purpose of this item in its recommended resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, commissioners. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda with one amendment, and that is the elimination of item 2 under the advisory calendar, commission pay schedule. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, commissioners. Next, we have the executive director report.
Thank you, commissioners. Oh, and one. Okay, if you can go to the next slide, please. Again, as the other commissioners have spoken of, today is Indigenous Peoples Day. We would like to honor the tribal nations and the invaluable contributions of Indigenous peoples. Next slide. I'd like to give a shout out to the Marine Terminal staff for last week's very busy operational schedule. Lynn Fosher, Conley Booth, Dan Musser, Dwayne Trammer, Paul Mickelson, Frank Boss, and our local ILWU 47 did a fantastic job in working with 2 different cargoes running operations at the same time. There were a lot of logistical challenges that caused our staff to pivot and be flexible. They did a fantastic job. 34 head of dairy cattle were successfully loaded and exported to Vietnam. This is the largest cattle export to take place through the Port of Olympia so far. And we are pleased to have a new import cargo that is utilizing the on-dock warehouse. Jasmine rice was imported from Thailand. It will be heading to local Costco stores. Congratulations to our fantastic team for proving why the Port of Olympia is the port that helps customers succeed. Next slide. The port was pleased to have the TAC Suzuka visit our marine terminal as part of its maiden voyage. The TAC Suzuka left the shipyard in August, went to Thailand to load rice, and then made the voyage to our docks to discharge the cargo. Commissioner Downing was joined by port staff and our customer, Otis McAllister, to present the captain with a maiden voyage plaque. Next slide. As the commissioners are certainly aware, many members of the public, the former Evergreen State Ferry departed the Port of Olympia's marine terminal on Monday, October 4th. The ferry has found a new home on a private dock in Langley on Whidbey Island. Next slide. And I am pleased to once again announce that the Port of Olympia has met benchmarks on the stormwater treatment facility now for 11 consecutive quarters. I want to give appreciation and thanks to the port staff members, Barb Tope, Paul Mickelson, Frank Boss, Dwayne Tramer, Dan Musser, and Conley Booth for their expertise and contributions to ensuring we continue to meet benchmarks for each quarter. Next slide. September 30th was World Maritime Day. We proudly joined in celebrating our colleagues in the maritime industry around the globe. This year's theme was Seafarers at the Core of Shipping's Future. The theme sought to increase the visibility of seafarers by drawing attention to the invaluable role they play now and will continue to play in the future. Next slide. And as Commissioner McGregor and I were chatting about, port staff and one random guy, I'm not sure whether they're referring to the guy in the blue jacket or not, participated in the Boo Coda casket races this past Saturday. They didn't bring home a trophy this year, but they won the sportsmanship category. Two of our runners helped assist the opposing team by joining their casket mid-race to help run and ensuring their victory over the port's own team casket in the final heat. Team members included Ian Guerrero, Frank Boss, Quentin Vicarius, Emily Madsen, and again, the one random guy who goes by the name of Glenn Ray. Thank you to Port Commissioner Bill McGregor for once again supporting staff in this event and helping to transport the casket. And I understand providing backup services for the smoke making machine. Next slide. The Olympia Historical Society Bigelow House Museum sent a letter congratulating the port on our upcoming centennial and announcing the port will be the recipient of the annual award recognizing the port centennial in 2022. A portion of the letter reads, on behalf of the Olympia Historical Society Bigelow House Museum, it is a privilege and honor for me to congratulate the Port of Olympia for 100 years of working on behalf of the community. Recognizing the significance of this milestone, it is my pleasure to announce that the Olympic Historical Society Board of Directors will recognize the port with our annual award to local businesses and organizations that have been in operation for over 100 years. To celebrate this achievement, Olympia Historical Society will honor the port at the OHS annual membership meeting on Saturday, January 22nd, 2022, beginning at 1 p.m. And we'll make sure that we get the invitations out for that. Next slide. As always, we have several ways for the public to engage with us. Here are some easy ways to contact us, give us feedback, or request a conversation. And that's it for this evening.
Thank you, Sam. I just want to say I was so thrilled to give a plaque to the captain of the ship that brought the rice. And again, hats off to port staff and to Len Fosher for landing this cargo, a brand new cargo of imported rice, which is bound for Costco stores throughout the United States. The ship had 4 other ports of call, at each port of call unloading rice for distribution. So very impressive. Okay. Moving on to litigation report, our own Felicia. Hi, Felicia.
Commissioner, I'm happy to report that we do not have a litigation report for you all this evening.
Are we keeping you busy therefore?
Oh, yes, even without our litigation report for you all, I am very busy. A lot of stuff working in the background for you, trying to
Good.
keep us away from having the litigation reports.
That sounds good. Thank you. Next, we have public comment. And I believe we have, I heard earlier today that Mr. Langens would like to give public comment tonight. So let's see. Looking at the attendees, I see Mr. Langens is on the phone or with us. Mr. Langens, would you like to give public comment?
Okay, am I on now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, I sent in a written public comment, so I won't belabor it by reading through it. But it concerns the ongoing practice of calling the operating income before depreciation as cash earned from operations. Now, that's either a delusional or deceptive statement because that's not true. The reason that it looks that way is because the heavy reliance on general obligation bonds. And, so what's presented to the public as free and clear cash flow is certainly not free and clear. Because that $2.3 million gets eaten up pretty damn fast by the $4.6 million worth of bond principal and interest that's paid out. So I think that's a very deceptive presentation. I urge you to eliminate it. I think it does point out one of the problems of general obligation bonds. Now, they're certainly cheaper than going general revenue, so I can see that attraction. The problem is that the general revenue bond would require stricter underwriting. But I submit that the problem with the port and why we're in such a hole is that there is no underwriting in terms of due diligence. I mean, the things that we do that we cover under general obligation bonds, I mean, they just don't fly. They're not viable. And so we're using a device to finance thing that's really not fair to the public. It's kind of like Donald Trump financing a casino because he is a rich daddy, but that only goes so far. So I urge you to delete that from future presentations. Lastly, I'll just indicate I have mentioned a number of times that the loss before tax levy had been removed from the financial statements. I mean, I find that interesting in that was one of your financial measures, and it appears that the staff has eliminated it. I, for one, would like to see that, and I'd like to hear if the commissioners still consider that a viable financial measurement. If so, shouldn't it be put back in? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Langens. Before we turn to commission response, I'd like to see if there's anybody else that'd like to give public comment on any subject facing the port during this general public comment session. Okay, seeing none, no other hands, I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners if they have a response to public comment tonight.
I'll let Commissioner McGregor go first.
Excuse me, all I'll say is thank you, Mr. Langens, for submitting your comments in writing. I've read through them prior to the meeting, and then I was going through as you were summarizing your comments in the verbal fashion. So thank you for your comments, and we'll see what happens come a new commission here and what they decide to do. But thank you for your written comments. They'll be part of the record.
Thank you. Commissioner Zeta?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Langens, for your analysis and your recommendations. I don't know if you were at the state auditor's interview that we had a couple hours ago, but some of the things we learned from their draft report are that we have our cash flow is one of several things that has been reported inaccurately by $2.26 million. There are two other categories that have been misreported by $4.5 million in one case and $6.5 million in another case. Concerns about cash flow are include, do we have enough, and are we reporting it accurately? So we got some big concerns there. Your point is well taken that general obligation bonds are cheaper and that they can be used to finance projects with little oversight. We have used them for financing just about everything from log loaders, which are losing money this year, to the crane, which is losing about $500,000 a year, to the Lacey CBC building, which I voted for with the promise that it would be making $500,000 a year, but we didn't do a market study ahead of time, and we didn't have to because it was backed by the taxpayers, the rich daddies, and we're losing money on that too. So I appreciate your recommendation that the general revenue bonds, while they may be more expensive, have a higher bar and will require us to look closer before we jump in and commit taxpayer money. And I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeta. Dennis? We corresponded today, and I just want to say that I appreciate your involvement over the years with the port. You come up with some pretty interesting angles on things. And I do agree that the geo bonds have been somewhat the habit at Port of Olympia, and revenue bonds, have a higher hurdle and are tied more directly to the planned investment. So these three commissioners are winding down their time together. We bought the majority voted for the Lacey CBC building. The majority voted for the log loaders. The majority voted for the marine fuel dock. The stormwater treatment plant and the marine crane were before our time. Nevertheless, we are getting up to the maximum amount we can borrow. I promise you to look hard at any future investments in my future years with the port. I have to disagree with Commissioner Zeta in that the log loaders are hugely profitable. They charge an hourly rate. I think that it's, well, can't quote me on that. It's a big number. And so there's a very defined payback stream on that. The Lacey CBC building got off to a rough start, but due to the excellent management from port staff and our executive director, we whipped that investment into shape. The Marina Fuel Dock is a community amenity. It's probably not selling enough fuel to cover all of its costs, plus the payback of that bond. So I think your points are well taken, but just in terms of your main statement that operating income before depreciation means cash earned from operations. Well, to me, you're reading something into that, because the proper accounting line item is operating income before depreciation. And I did take a look at other ports, and tax revenue and bond payments are all part of non-operating income. So when you talk about net operating income before depreciation, yes, indeed, the Port of Olympia is budgeted, at least in 2022, to earn 2.3 million net operating income before depreciation. So that's a particular line in the financial statement. It's there for anybody to read. And that's the actual number. When depreciation is important, and that's a different number. Net operating income after depreciation is -1 million. And that compares with a couple of the ports, of which I won't name, but a couple of my favorite ports on the Puget Sound. One of the port has net operating income of just barely positive at 45,000 on 15 million of revenues after depreciation. Another port in the Puget Sound has net operating income after depreciation of -6.7 million. That's a pretty big number. And they just have a whole lot of depreciation. So I'll just stick to my basic statement, which is I appreciate your interest in the port and some of the things you raise. You know, I hope we're super careful with any future investments. I can't speak to whether or not we did it right or wrong in terms of revenue bonds versus geo bonds in the past. But that one line, operating income before depreciation, that's according to our accountant, which I recently talked to, and according to how I've seen other budget financial statements presented in other ports, that seems to be the proper way to do it from an accounting standpoint. Thank you.
Commissioner McGregor or Commissioner Downing.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out, Commissioner Zeta, that it's our response to Mr. Langens. It's not your response to me. So the agenda calls for commission response to public comment. And so all three of us did respond.
If I may speak without being interrupted, please.
So you'd like to have the last word? Is that what you're saying?
As I started to say before I was interrupted, I neglected to answer Mr. Langen's direct question of all three commissioners, which was, do we still want to see the tax levy, the income or loss before tax levy in our financial statements? And my answer to Mr. Langens is yes. All the financial measures which are in the port policy should be reported in our financial statements. And just for clarification, this year's budget book says the log loaders are earning $134,000 this year. We spent over $3 million on them over 20 years. That means a cost of $150,000 per year, not including berth stabilization and paving costs of about $500,000 a year. So $134,000 per year of income from the log loaders is a significant loss.
Yeah, point of order, Commissioner Zeta. The agenda calls for commission response to public comment, not commission response to fellow commissioners. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the action calendar. We have 2021 Port Security Grant Program acceptance, and our own Matt Peach is presenting.
Good evening, commissioners. Tonight I'm seeking approval from the commission, or actually, Shayla, can you show the screen, please? Thanks.
Sorry, just 1 second. Hold on.
So tonight I'm seeking approval from the commission for staff to accept a security grant through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for the Port Cyber Awareness and Hardening Project. Next slide, please. Earlier this year, the port applied for a Homeland Security grant to help fund the proposed 2022 capital project, Port Cyber Awareness and Hardening Project, that will come before the commission as part of the 2022 capital investment plan. The project will harden the port's information technology infrastructure to help protect against a cyber attack that would seriously impede the port's operation. The project will separate the port's Wi-Fi network from the port's internal fiber optic backbone. Next slide, please. The port received notice the port has been awarded the grant. Policy 1008 requires staff to get commission approval to accept a grant when the grant is not listed in the approved capital or operating budget. And the grant requires a port contribution of new capital funds or annual operating expenses estimated not to exceed $300,000. As mentioned, the project will be included in the 2022 capital investment plan, but will not be adopted until later November and the project grant exceeds $300,000. Next slide, please. Staff is requesting the commission provide approval for staff to accept the grant. The grant must be accepted within 60 days of award notice, which was September 10th. The total project is estimated to be $304,975, with the port share being $76,244 and the federal grant share of $228,731. Next slide, please. And here's an example of the proposed motion to approve staff to accept the security grant through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. I move to authorize staff to accept the port security grant and execute an agreement through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in the amount of $304,975 for the Port Cyber Awareness and Hardening Project. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioners, do you have any questions or discussion about this project?
Well, Mr. Peach, I want to thank you for bringing these details to us again, as you did in advisory at our previous meeting. And if I recall correctly, you assured us that this contract would go out to bid. Is that right?
That is correct.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Matt, for giving another presentation. It was advisory last time, and now you brought it forward for actual action. I think that anytime we can improve our security, especially in the cyber field of things, I think it's a good spending of dollars. And when we can do it when the port's paying 25 cents on the dollar for the project, I think that that's an even better deal for us, and also prevents cyber issues that go on, and we've heard about them in many different entities. So I think that this is something that is worth pursuing and accepting. So I am prepared to make a motion when it becomes time.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeta and McGregor. I think I echo both my fellow commissioners' concerns and appreciation for this, for landing this grant and for protecting our infrastructure, computer infrastructure. So, Commissioner McGregor, you'd like to make a motion, you said?
I would. So I would move to authorize staff to accept the port security grant and execute an agreement through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in the amount of $304,975 for the Port Cyber Awareness and Hardening Project.
Second.
Thank you. Second. Is there a second?
I seconded.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeta. So it's been moved and seconded to authorize staff to accept the port security grant and execute an agreement through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in the amount of $304,975 for the Port Cyber Awareness and Hardening Project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The measure has been approved. Thank you, Matt. Next, and we don't have any action other calendar items tonight, but we do have an advisory calendar. And so again, Matt Peach is up and he's going to talk about the budget process and schedule.
Thank you, Shayla. So we are going to review the timeline for the 2022 operating budget, capital investment plan, and also opportunities for public input. Next slide, please. On October 4th, we had our first work session in which reviewed and presented the draft 2022 operating budget and capital investment plan. On October 18th, we will have another work session to review the capital investment plan, tax levy, as well as any commission changes. Next slide, please. On October 25th, we have an advisory on the 2022 proposed operating budget, capital investment plan, and tax levy. November 8th, we will have our public hearing on the draft 2022 operating budget, capital investment plan, and tax levy. November 15th, we have a work session if necessary. And on November 26th, we will have final adoption of the 2022 operating budget, capital investment plan, and tax levy. Next slide, please. Any questions?
I have a question for the executive director in preparation for, I think it's next Monday's work session. Two things. One is, are you going to send out a document that allows commissioners to take a stab at their interests in terms of the commission budget? And also, do you recommend that we send in our questions about the budget in general this
Yes.
week, or is that not time sensitive?
Yes, so I did send out the spreadsheet earlier this morning, so please let me know if you didn't receive that. And that does have the opportunity for each commissioner. There are two tabs on the spreadsheet, one for the tax levy budget and one for the commission budget. We would like for you to send those back to us so that we can include them in the package on Friday so that you can have those a chance to review those over the weekend. And then, yes, any type of questions that you might have, or if you would like to schedule an individual meeting with staff, please let me know, and I will have appropriate staff scheduled for you. Or you could send us your questions in via email, or and we'll also be going back and getting the questions down from the previous work session and getting responses to you for those. We maintain a log of all the questions and recommendations and things, and so we are working on those. So if you could get those in at your earliest convenience, it would help us to get them into the packet. This time of year with a budget, sometimes we do revise the budget later in the week so we can include timely materials such as answers to questions, etc.
Excellent. Thank you, Sam. Commissioners, Commissioner McGregor, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sam, I didn't get an email with that sheet. I was looking for it and wondered, I brought that up tonight, so I'm glad you brought it up. So could you send it again? Because I didn't
I
see it
certainly
come back.
will, and thank you. I'm glad you checked for it, because I will send that out right away before I leave this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Peach, I have a couple of questions about the documents that we went through at our previous meeting. And I'm hoping that we'll get a few updated pages. I expect we'll get a lot of updated pages, but in particular, page 12 had a budget, an overall budget. Total port page 13 had a total port operating budget. There's no debt on there. I understand that we're not reporting debt with the operating budget, but in the budget overview on page 24, it says it's for the marina, but it's actually for the whole port. So I think that we were going to get that for the whole port. That does have the annual debt service, which is great. $4.5 million in debt service for the whole port, not for the marina. And then on page 20, on page 33, we have that another version of that chart. I think we want to have the numbers for the marine terminal, but we have the numbers for the whole port. And then on page 41, we have the actual numbers for real estate, but the debt is missing. So if we could at least just get those summary pages of the budget overview pages for the business units and for the whole port. If we could get those new pages with the correct titles on and with the debt included, that would be great. Would that be possible?
Yeah, we can, we'll send out, well, I know the presentation last Monday included some updates there that weren't necessarily reflected in that packet. So we can certainly send out the updated packet.
And I appreciate that you included the debt on page 33 in the budget overview. And if it's possible to include that on those budget overview pages, I'd be grateful.
I know the debt service was for the port wide. I don't recall it being for individual business units.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peach.
Thank you.
Well, good. Thank you, Matt, for that information. I guess we're ready to move on to the next item, which is Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee broadband report. Deb Patton and Cameron Wilson, POCAC members, will be presenting. Hello, Ms. Patton. How are you today?
That's great. Thank you so much, Commissioner Downing.
We're ready when you are.
I think we're waiting for Cameron to get his audio on.
Gotcha. Okay.
There we go. Evening, everybody. Hello.
There he is. Hi, Cameron. How you doing?
Hi, guys. Great. Thank you, guys and gals.
So Cameron, would you like to start with your findings from contacting the 3 recommended ports?
Sure. Well, I mean, I assume the commissioners have had an opportunity to review our findings. So, it's what we've submitted via written report is more or less, the contents of our report. I don't think it bears, reading through word for word, but we did reach out to each of the respective ports and got some excellent feedback from a couple of them, and gleaned what we could from the third, who we had a little trouble getting in contact with. But each of them overall had some very positive findings and feedback with respect to their respective broadband proposals. The one common denominator seemed to be that the initial cost per service address seemed to be a little bit fairly expensive, and that may make more sense in a more rural setting. But for the cost per service, it was strikingly high. And I think part of that has to do with the more rural nature of the ports that we were asked to contact. But those who had the service were absolutely pleased with its quality and its pricing. And but the questions are whether it would be applicable to Olympia or Thurston County in general remains to be seen. At least that's what I found from my discussions with the other ports. Now, Debbie, you had you made some progress on some other avenues in terms of other organizations that are already moving forward in promoting broadband for Thurston County. So why don't you touch in on that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the Port of Olympia is part of the Thurston County Broadband Action Team. It's called the BAT, B-A-T. Sam is the official port representative to that group, and I am the POCAC rep as a subset of the port. And that group is made up of the Nisqually and the Chehalis tribes, and also the numerous other organizations, including the Thurston County itself, and the meetings are chaired by a member from Thurston County, and the Thurston County EDC and the PUD and so on. So there's a coalition, and they meet monthly, and I've been attending all of their meetings and participating with them. They are prepared to send out a memorandum of understanding for all of these different organizations. It will be going to Sam. They talked about doing a digital sign on, and they decided that for legal purposes that it would really be better to have a one written document with all the signees putting their own signature to that document. So that's making its way through the mail. So in light of the progress from the Broadband Action Team, what's going on is that significant progress has already been made during this whole last COVID wasteland of months. The Nisqually and the Chehalis tribe, as I've mentioned previously at POCAC meetings, they did an actual census. They went door to door, all the way between the Nisqually tribe and the Chehalis tribe, and determined what broadband access was available in those households and those businesses and those schools. They have now contracted with an IPS, internet provider service, and the plan is to provide 5G service along the route between the Nisqually and the Chehalis reservation. They've received a $2 million grant, and they are anticipating another $4 million grant. Additionally, the Thurston County Public Utility District, the PUD, has undertaken a survey of households, schools, businesses, hospitals, other first responder agencies within the county. And the PUD is considering a tax levy, if needed, to assist in providing affordable broadband in underserved areas, with their main focus being on schools and students in the underserved regions of the county. We all know that in the urban core, there is broadband service readily available, but it's in the rural areas where it does not reach. So additionally, the Thurston County Commissioners are expected to approve the allocation of $5 million from the county's American Recovery Act funding, and they plan to allot that to the broadband project. So what we've decided is that since the PUD and especially the tribes are already well underway in this whole project of reaching the underserved citizens in Thurston County, that the role of the Port of Olympia should be to support these other agencies. And that could include direct financial support. It could include the opportunity for an ISP to co-locate one of their a necessary building if they need that on some port-owned property. Also coordinating and prioritizing easements and access for installation of fiber infrastructure to premises located on the port-owned property, which does go towards South County. And so there is ample opportunity for that. And the Port of Olympia, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be one of the signers of the memorandum of understanding between all the agencies and entities in the Thurston Broadband Action Team. So that's our recommendation. We don't feel that it is advisable for the port to go off on its own to do this work when these other two agencies and organizations are way ahead and have already signed contracts. So we're happy to entertain any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you, Cameron, for this report. A lot of good information in here. I know that moving broadband forward in Thurston County is important to the commissioners and important to the public as well. So I'd like to ask my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Zeta or McGregor, do you have any questions or comments about this?
I want to
report?
thank Deb and Cameron for doing this study. It's very important, and it's the Nisqually tribe has really taken the lead on this in our region. They started building the backbone already, and they're connecting it to the Chehalis tribe. They have a clear strategy for serving underserved areas and then branching out from that South County backbone, perhaps even into neighboring counties. They have a great track record in getting funding, and the PUD has also made a commitment to this project. In the June meeting, all the parties at the Broadband Action Team said, let's get letters of support from our organizations. And my understanding was that the port was going to provide a letter of support, but I don't know if that happened or not. Good, it did, great. So absolutely support this Broadband Action Team, which was where the Nisqually tribe is taking the lead and doing a great job.
Good, Commissioner McGregor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I would like to thank the POCAC, there's not only the subcommittee, but the whole committee for their input on this. I think that you've done a good job of bringing some of this forward, some of your recommendations and seeing what's happening in other ports. And I'm very much in favor of us being involved. During last year's budget cycle, I was in favor of setting aside some serious cash, not just serious as far as the port is concerned, but it didn't make it through the budget process. But I think that we have to put some skin in the game, and I think that by joining with a group such as this, including putting money into the pot to help move this forward, I think that it opens itself up to even more funding that may be available out there as you get the matrix looks at collaboration of other entities. And the tribe, the Redwind or the Nisqually tribe has done a great job so far. I know they've been working with the Chehalis tribe and have actually, I think, working on 5G service into the Chehalis tribe's area out there. So they're well underway, but I think anything we can do to help with getting into our urban areas, the broadband that we need to have and to provide, it is also a good economic development tool that could expand opportunities in many places in South County as they look for bringing in other businesses and that kind of support. So I'm very much in favor of moving something forward. I think the time is right. We may be a little bit behind on it, but I think if we join in and as I understand, we've committed to help at the BAT, or the BAT, as Deborah said. So I'm very much in forward of this, and I plan to bring some ideas forward on funding for this moving into the 2022 budget, because I think the time is now. We need to get into the game and we need to help out our fellow citizens in obtaining proper broadband services. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Deb or Cameron, I was talking with an individual who is with an agency, and he tells me that every school in the state of Washington has broadband access. Would you say that's a true statement or
Yes,
not?
yes, that's true. It's not
Good.
when they're at school. There's a whole
Right.
agency and a whole division that's providing the broadband access at school. It's when they're not at school. So
Got
when
it.
they're having remote school or hybrid school, or in evenings when they're home and on the weekends, that's when so many children and students don't have access. So that's
Good.
what that was a main takeaway that the PUD has determined from their survey, was that the schools themselves have the access. It's when the kids are not at school.
Okay. And then as I read the conclusion, I wasn't clear that, have we already signed on to this memorandum of understanding? Or if we sign on, we would be a partner on this?
It's
So I wasn't clear.
going through the US mail or courier or carrier pigeon or whatever. It's going to be a hard copy that goes from each entity, because they want all the signatures on one individual hard copy. So Sam will let us know when she gets it. It's coming around. We have a meeting next Thursday, a week from now, and we'll get an update on how far it's made it through all the various entities and agencies. But she will be the signer for the port, and it'll be a hard copy.
Got it. Okay, great. And then one last question. You mentioned this thing called the structure and function document, which describes the participants' intent, mission, strategy, and results. So I'd be curious to have a look at that.
Well, I think you should have received a copy, because I submitted it for distribution to the commissioners. So if you don't have it, then we will
Okay.
double check to see where it is. But it came in with, I forwarded it. But it just talks about the scope of what everybody's responsibilities are. So
Okay,
if
good.
you don't have it, if you can't find it, I will make sure it's resent.
Oh, thanks. Was that in the last couple of weeks, or when was that sent out?
It was when I sent the revised or the updated version of this report, which I updated on the 29th after the broadband, the BAT meeting of
Oh.
that week.
Thank you. I'll take a look for it. Okay, thank you. Any other Commissioner Zita?
So I want to support Commissioner McGregor's suggestion that we consider putting our money where our mouth is here. Commissioner Downing and I attended a number of meetings in 2018 on a coalition of ports that was working to build a broadband backbone all up and down I-5. And Rudy was our acting executive director at that time, and he knows the details. Now, at that time, the Port of Olympia had penciled in $200,000 to contribute to that $7 million project. That was pretty small as a starting investment, and we were looking at possibly ramping it up. So that is the ballpark that we had provisionally committed to 3 years ago. That project ended up not flying because of some details in the deal between the many players. But it says something about our level of interest 3 years ago. And I think our interest is at least as deep and maybe deeper now.
Good statement.
Yeah,
Anything-
if I may, just to close it out kind of a little bit, there does remain some opportunity for the port to be involved beyond just straight financial commitment, which I agree. I mean, fundamentally, this is something that a lot of us benefit from. Other ports that I did talk to have been able to lease properties on port property to the, Debbie called it a co-location. It's and forgive my relative ignorance here, but essentially a big switching station. And several of the ports that have implemented this or participated in it have been able to benefit by leasing space to the ISPs who are able to utilize some of the infrastructure that gets built. So, there can be some potential upsides, and certainly, improving high-speed internet to rural customers and constituents of Thurston County. It is a laudable goal. It just doesn't, in our opinion, look like the Port of Olympia would be the spearhead so much as maybe the supporting shaft of the spear that helps continue the momentum going. We think it's a laudable goal. We think there is a place for the Port of Olympia to play, a role to play in that, and we look forward to what the commissioners decide to do. But it's an excellent topic, and thank you all for giving us something to look at that has some real potential. It was a learning process, I think, for both Debbie and I, and we're very appreciative for both the initiative itself and the opportunity to work on it. So thank you very much, and good luck.
You're right, Cameron. It's a great opportunity for the port and the community. The Port of Whitman County, they made a modest investment on the order of $1 million, and it has paid back an order of magnitude. They did this about a decade ago. So they have a great return on their investment, and it has really contributed to economic development and access and equity in their community. So we have an opportunity to play some of that role here in support of this effort that the Nisqually tribe is already getting done.
Thank you again, Cameron and Deb. Appreciate that report. Very interesting. And we're hopeful for the future of this. So at this time,
Commissioner McGregor's trying to talk.
oh, sorry.
I'm
Commissioner McGregor?
sorry. Yeah, nope, you're fine. I was just going to say, Cameron put a little quote in the chat feature on here. It said he needs, sorry for cutting in and out, but he needs better broadband. And I have to agree with you, Cameron. So way to go.
Good, very good. At this time, we're going to ask if there's any public comment on the advisory calendar. So we have another opportunity for public comment, but it does have, or we're asking you if it relates to either the budget process and schedule or the broadband report as just presented. So is there anybody like to give public comment on the advisory items? Well, not seeing any. I think we'll move on from there. We turn to commission reports and discussion. Commissioner McGregor or Zita, do you have anything?
No, the highlight of my week was the casket races in Dakota, and it was a great time. So thank you.
Thurston Regional Planning Council has approved new mission, vision, and values. We're waiting for some minor edits on part of that, but it's a good process and a good result.
Excellent. And excellent. Thank you. I haven't had any subcommittee meetings. I've got the Transportation and Policy Board coming up this Wednesday. Also like to ask, I see that Commissioner Zita and I are, concerned about the log loaders and how well they're doing. And I would just like to ask if staff, without too much trouble, could put out a revised pro forma based on the 3 to 4 years of ownership. I don't know the exact number. We've got the initial cost, and then we've got the interest on the bond. And weigh against that the amount of use we've gotten out of those log loaders. I hate to have differences of opinion with my fellow commissioners, and I think it's a situation where the little updated facts from the staff would be helpful. And I know you got a lot on your plate, Sam, but if you could.
I second that motion if you're making a motion, Commissioner Downing, and I'll also refer you to page 46 of the budget book in the Green Marine Terminal tab, where it gives the figures on the log loader income.
Thanks, Commissioner Zito. I'll take a look at that. Yes, I'm not actually making a motion. But I think that carries some weight that at least two commissioners are interested in that analysis. So we've got the staff has a lot on their plate in the middle of budget season. So, I'd ask their attention to that when they, depending on how much work it is and if the numbers are already together and so on and so forth. Okay. Any other business tonight? Well, good. And just a reminder, Sam, we might not have seen that document because at least two commissioners said they hadn't seen it. So that's a big meeting coming up next Monday's work session. And commissioners, I believe we're starting at 1:30 based on Commissioner McGregor's suggestion to give us a little bit more time. So, and Commissioner Zita, did you have
Yes,
anything
I have
else?
a suggestion. I'd like
go ahead.
to see if the commission supports this. I would suggest that we consider adding Indigenous Peoples Day as a holiday to the port calendar. Any support for this?
Not sure what that means. Not sure what that means.
Well, it's recently been announced as a federal holiday, and I think that Indigenous Peoples Day should be a port holiday. So if it's appropriate, I would make a motion that we consider that. And I would look for a second.
Well, there's holidays and then there's holidays.
So when I say we consider it, that means we have staff take a look at the pros and cons.
Oh, I see. So Commissioner Zita has made a motion to consider including Indigenous Peoples Day on the port holiday calendar.
Call for a second.
Call for a second. Is there a second? I'll second for purposes of discussion.
Okay.
And first we have Executive Director Gibney and then Commissioner McGregor.
Thank you, Commissioner. And yes, just per your rules resolution, this is typically the time during the agenda that if you want to bring up a topic to be added to the work session list, that this would be, and that might indeed be what Commissioner Zita is suggesting, that we add this to the list of topics to be covered at a future work session.
That would be fine.
Thank you. And then Commissioner McGregor.
I was just going to say, I really need more information on what does this entail? What are we talking about? I mean, we've got probably another 10 months before this comes around again, 10 months to another year. And so it might be something that our next Board of Commissioners can undertake, but at least have some information provided so that they, as we leave office, we can forward on to them for consideration. So that's fine. I just would like information on it. So a work session seems to be appropriate.
So that's what this would provide, is the information required to make that decision.
Thanks, Commissioner Zeta. So would you like to rephrase your motion?
So I move that the commission direct staff to study the pros and cons of adding Indigenous Peoples Day as a holiday to the port calendar, and present that to the commission at some future date.
Great.
I'll second it.
So it's been moved and seconded to request board staff look at the pros and cons of creating Indigenous Peoples' Day on the port holiday calendar and bring that to the commission at a future work session. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Great, thank you for your support. On a related matter, I move that the commission direct port staff to bring tribal land acknowledgement to us for action this year. We've been working on this for 2 years now, and I would like to take action on it this year.
So it's been moved to have port staff bring a tribal honor statement to the commission for action this year. Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second.
Okay, one more. I move that the commission direct staff to report on all financial measures as adopted in port policy. Now that shouldn't be necessary because it's already in port policy, but I would like to see our debt reported as we're considering our budget.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Zeta, I didn't quite comprehend or hear that. Could you please repeat your motion?
I'd move that commissioners direct staff to report on all financial measures in our port policy, including our debt, as we consider the budget.
I'll second for purposes of discussion. Executive Director Gibney, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Commissioner. We haven't, port staff has indeed reported on financial measures. We do so at the annual report. The only measure that we have not reported on is the, I believe it is stated of income before tax levy, et cetera. And quite frankly, as we have explained to the commission on several different occasions, we have not been able to replicate past results that were done. It was a formulation and an equation that was developed with some community members and a previous staff member. Be happy to report on it if we could, if we knew how the arithmetic was done. But we have reported on all of the financial measures and we do so at the annual, with the annual report.
In particular, I'm asking to see the debt as we consider the budget.
Indeed, that is included, that bond and debt load is included, and we will be presenting that again next Monday.
It's included in some of the budget statements and not others. So I don't know if other commissioners are concerned about this or not.
I don't recall seeing it, Executive Director Gibney. I do not recall seeing, I believe it was a bar graph that shows
Right.
total debt and over the course of the years with a line representing
Right.
maximum allowable debt. So I don't recall seeing that in the first packet.
No, it was not in the first packet. It will be in the next packet for the 18th.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I'm referring to, is that what we refer to as the debt portfolio for the oncoming years.
So staff will provide that to us next week.
Yes, it'll be in the packet that goes out tomorrow. And again, that is the bar graph that is includes the payments that are due for the next number of years. I think it goes out over more than a 10-year horizon.
That's good. I don't suppose we're going to get the debt by business unit.
We've not seen that it's ever been reported that that way. So Mr. Peach went back and looked to see that, and that's not been broken out. We have provided and can again what was included in the various bond measures and where those went to. But again, so since we are typically presenting an income statement type format in the budget and the principal payment and interest payments are included in the non-operating budgets, those two things typically are not combined.
It's fine if they're not combined, but we would like to see the principal and interest payments for each of those areas.
Again, we've not broken them out before for each business unit. We have shown it as in totality, and we've not been able to find it that it's been shown that way in years past.
So if I can provide you evidence that it has been broken out in years past, then will you consider providing that now?
Again, that I'd be happy to look at it. It's just I'm not quite sure. We present the operating budget that has the income, and then the non-operating budget that has the interest payments, and then we show the principal payments and the tax levy budget.
Well, I'll look forward to seeing a fuller accounting of the debt next week.
Well, I'd like to, support Commissioner Zeta on this, which is, I know that 2 or 3 years ago, I've seen a spreadsheet that shows each outstanding bond and what it was used for and how much is left on it. And it might not have been organized by airport, marine terminal, marina, but the item purchase, you can clearly see what it goes for. I'm pretty sure it was organized by business unit. So I would just like, that's it's not part of your regular budget. And as I explained to Mr. Langens, you've got your operating income and operating expenses, and then you've got your non-operating income and non-operating expenses, 2 different things. And so they're typically not broken out by business unit, but that doesn't mean that commissioners can't see that. So anyway, I just want to support the fact that I'm pretty sure it does exist somewhere, and perhaps it's not been updated in a year or 2.
You're quite right. You're quite right, Commissioner Downing. We have in the past been provided with those multi-year charts of our principal and interest on each of our different debts. For example, log loaders, crane, CBC, and so forth. Now, this is before we bought the log loader and the CBC. And we need to see those. You're right.
Well, so Commissioner Zeta, we're still discussing your motion, and because it's been moved and seconded, and I'd have a hard time supporting it because I believe the executive director Gibney is correct. There's at least one financial measure and policy, I think it's 1203 or 1103, that's absolutely impossible to arrive at a number. I think it was just poorly written. So what I'd look forward to, and I still look forward to, is some sort of agreement on revised financial measures for the port, what they are and when they are due. Are they due quarterly, biannually, or annually? So, but in order to run the meeting, it's been moved and seconded to instruct port staff to
Report on the financial measures.
report on the
In time
financial
for us to
measures
consider them for
as
this budget.
outlined in port policies. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, please say nay.
If I might, just for clarity's sake, so we can provide the financial measures that were reported to the commission on our annual report for 2020, and we can certainly provide those again. Is that what the commission is seeking?
I don't know if you reported on all the financial measures, and we're seeking for all the financial measures so that we can consider those with this budget.
We did report on all of them but one, and that's the one that we have not been able to replicate. So we did present those in the presentation of the annual report earlier this year, and I'm happy to forward that to the commission again, if that's what you're seeking.
If you
Sounds like
have,
what we voted on. Yep, the commission it passed. So,
Okay.
thank you. Great. We'll get a big meeting coming up next week. Is there any other business for tonight? Okay, I would like to turn to meeting announcements. Meeting announcements, folks. October 18, we have a commission work session starting an hour early at 1:30 p.m. That makes it I think it makes it a special meeting because it's a different time than the regular.
Correct.
Then on October 25th at 5:30 p.m., we have a regularly scheduled commission meeting. Then on November 1 at 2:30 p.m., another commission work session.
Commissioner Downey, I would just want to make aware to everyone that I may or may not be at the November 1st, as I'll be traveling. I'm just not sure the traveling arrangements at what time I'll be able to participate. So I'll know better as it draws closer. But at this point, it doesn't look like I'll be able to participate in that one.
well, have fun. I hope you'll have fun.
Yeah, I hope.
Thanks for that heads up, Commissioner McGregor. Is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
I.
Aye.
Thank you, staff, and thank you, commissioners. Have a good evening.